Welcome to the first episode of Launch It Podcast, where we dive into all things transportation, logistics, supply chain, and business. My name is Matt. I'm joined by Evan and Karen Deep. We've been tiptoeing around the last few months about starting a podcast, sharing our thoughts, experiences with the world. So I'm glad we finally be able to come together and make it happen. For the first episode, we're just going to talk about joining the industry, being part of the industry, how does one get involved in the industry, and it's going to be just a laid-back conversation. And we thought it was a good idea, a good timely topic to get into with COVID and the economy, everything going on. Let's highlight the logistics industry. With that being said, I'll hand it off to Evan here to get us going, and off we go. Evan.
Absolutely, thank you. And I mean, starting in the logistics industry depends, right? You can start as a driver, you can start in the logistics admin side. How I started out was, just getting my license, working on trucks and things like that. Then I moved to the dispatch side, obviously, and I think it's a very dynamic industry. It's not for somebody who just sort of like wants to do one thing. If you want to do something multiple times and do a lot of different fields in one line, and you can just do that. And there's really
a lot of hats you got to wear all the time.
But even your experience was a bit different because you were pretty young when you got your license. It's not like a typical journey that someone has. Like my journey was completely different. I'm sure his journey was a little bit different. So highlight it a little bit more. But why did you start driving at such a young age? How old were you when you got your license, and what compelled you to do that?
I was just like, I believe I was like 6-7 months after 18. I was 18 and a half when I signed up. And then I wanted to do it, obviously make some summer cash for pay for school, things like that. But also, I wanted to drive a truck for my dad, help him out and things like that. But I really just wanted to learn the industry from a driver's perspective, because I know that at the end of the day, you can have all the customers, all the money in the world, but if you don't treat the drivers good, you don't know how they feel, what problems they go through, you're not going to be able to solve the things at the foundation, right? And it really helped me establish a strong foundation personally in terms of learning the trucking business hands-on. And once I got that hands-on experience, it just translates into sales and operations and things like that.
Absolutely. So, kind of walk me through that first couple of years that you were doing that, driving truck, and how's your experience? Like, how much value do you think that brings to someone new? Because that's a very unique experience for most people. Because most people go to school, they're told to do that, and retrospectively, looking back on my own career now, I would have loved to have done that. I think that's a great way to start off because A, would my school been paid off. B, my house would have been paid off because it is a lucrative, good industry to get into. Yeah. But high schools don't promote it, colleges don't promote it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Not many people, share that side of the industry. We don't know. I don't know. For me, it was my dad. I knew my dad had a trucking business, like 1-2 trucks, but I never knew about the whole brokerage side or anything that it's not exposed to, like you said, in the education system.
Absolutely, and I think it's a really unique experience. So, kind of elaborate more about that if you could. Talk about driving a truck at 18. Where would you go? It was around the city. Did you do any long routes, short routes, and then how you got into the dispatching part? Talk about how that changed your outlook of how to dispatch too.
Like I said, same as Karen, my dad had a trucking business, we were growing, and then myself, my brother, dad are involved, and then I saw that they needed help with basically just shunting trucks back and forth. I know I shouldn't say it, but a couple of times I did it obviously without my license, and I found it wasn't that hard, and I wanted to hear what the buzz was about, right? So I got my license so I could work on trucks properly, just drop off mechanics, things like that. Once in a while I would go on local pickup and delivery, and whenever I got a chance I would do routes like Ottawa, Nepean, things like that, because it's easy, and then just help me understand what a driver goes through every single day. And when you drive a truck, you learn so much about the mechanical aspect. Like I said, I started off from the tech side. I wanted to just fix trucks. I wanted to make sure they weren't breaking down. Because when a truck breaks down, it costs you a lot of money, and your customer's pissed off. I don't want my customer or driver to be impacted by the breakdown. Even new trucks were breaking down. So when I drove the truck, I just understood this is how the transmission works. When something goes wrong, this is the bypass for it until you get to the next shop.
Yeah.
So that was the experience that I got. Saved money in the initial stages, but then I realized if I know how to drive a truck, I can solve a lot of problems, and I can teach dispatchers how to solve those problems on the road and not have to call service every time.
Yeah.
So that was my whole thing: save money first, and then I started to realize, I wanted to do a little bit more roles and things like that. And if I was just fixing trucks, no offense to techs, but I couldn't get further, grow the company, right? So for me, it was just getting into dispatch a little bit after, and then from there, it just moved on to learning a little bit about everything.
Yeah. Just touching on the mechanical aspect, I guess. Looking at it from a broker's perspective, it's beneficial to have that knowledge in case when you're talking to carriers, and so sometimes they think we don't know what's up, and they'll say, well, this is broken, that is broken, and they'll try to take advantage of us, right? If you're able to say, they'll say, hey, my engine and this is broken, the chain is broken, right? You're able to ask them questions to see if they're telling the truth, if that's the case, right?
Yeah, I think it's vital. I think that's spot on, and even being able to dive into that and having that ability to fix something on the road, because like you talk about that frustration for a driver and a lot of dispatchers. I remember like, yeah, the guy's broke down, I'm gonna wait for a mobile, I'll give him a call, but you don't understand the frustration a driver's going through at that point, because A, he's losing money, like you can relate to that guy. So for you, it would be a higher priority than someone who hasn't experienced that, and I think that's true value in itself, right?
So the driver's sitting there without AC or heat, man. When the truck breaks down, more often than not, coolant's leaking or it's on a regen, you don't want to keep it on for too long, things like that. So the driver's literally just like sitting there. It could be cold, it could be hot, and they're physically feeling it. They're sitting there, they're getting mentally, they're just getting depressed because they're not on the road, and customers don't pay for it. Breakdowns cost money, like you said, nobody pays you for it, and I think the industry needs to sort of change that up a little bit, starting with carriers paying the drivers, for breakdowns. I saw this with some companies that are paying like $50 a day for breakdown.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a good start, but then I think don't even pay the guy money, get him a hotel, pay for his meals and things like that, so that the guy doesn't care about physical money. Just give me a check, just get him on the road as soon as you can. But if it's gonna take a while, get him in a nice spot, because a lot of drivers expect you to just go sleep in your truck or figure it out on your own, right?
Yeah.
That's just you don't care about them, right? So you don't want it to be like that.
Absolutely. So Kieran, you talk about your experience. How old were you when you got into the industry? What were the steps that you took? Would you have done it sooner? Looking back at it, would you have done later? Would you have done anything differently?
Yeah, sure. I guess I started in the industry, like you said, going to university, I graduated with a kinesiology and health and science degree.
Oh, really?
So
nothing to do with trucks.
Nothing to do with trucks. The most exposure I had to trucks was my dad had a straight truck. He had leased it off to the company he was working at. He was a shipper receiver there, so he had his own truck that he was moving their products for. So that was most I was really exposed to trucking, and my uncle had a trucking. He had one truck that he was going back from Texas and Ontario.
Yeah.
That was about it. So I didn't have too much knowledge about it, but I knew, you see trucks on the roads and stuff. Okay, it's an industry, right? In terms of how I got into it was I graduated university. I was applying for jobs, and one of my other friends from high school, he actually got started at another brokerage out in Waterloo, and he started liking it, and he said he was starting to make like really good money fairly quickly, right? Compared to like something like not just the degree I got to make the money he was telling me he was making, it would have took me 5-6 years, right? So I'm like, okay, let me see what's around, what companies are in the area, and take it from there, right? At that time, he said that he can hook me up and get a job in Waterloo, but I didn't want to go out there, so I started looking for companies in the area, and then I joined a brokerage, and you can say that's how I got my feet wet into the industry. And yeah, from there it's been about 2-3 years since I've been in it, and I've been enjoying it. It's had its ups and downs, but that's with anything, right? So yeah, that's how I live in the industry, and yeah.
So do you give massages in the office too, just to kind of go back to your kinesiology roots, or none of
I
that?
don't share that side of it. People have jokingly said they'll start a wellness program, walking clubs and stuff like that, but
Yes.
I'm too busy, hammering calls and trying to get more business, get more freight, and yeah.
Absolutely. Do you find it enjoyable? Do you find that hustle? That's one thing I always enjoy about, from my point of view, is that hustle, that change of every day. As a young person, do you find that very...
At first, I'd say it was a bit, I wouldn't say intimidating, but I guess it's different from, the typical, you're in school and you're told to do X, Y, Z. It's kind of like that, reporting lifestyle, whereas now, it was more, I got on board as a sales role, so there's that, it's on you. It's either you sink or you rise type of thing, right? So everything, what you do is you're accountable for, right? So that was a little bit intimidating at first, especially not just when you're not, hitting numbers or getting customers, but once you get your first taste of okay, I got my first shipment, I got my first, customer, once the ball starts rolling, that's when you're like, okay, cool, give me more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, I guess, if you have the entrepreneurial drive, definitely get into it. Any sales role is good, but I feel like trucking and logistics is something that's evergreen. So if someone's interested, I would definitely say don't shy away. At least try it out for a year or two. You can always switch around after, right? But give it a shot, right? So that's my take on it.
Do you see value of getting some university underneath your belt before you get into logistics, or do you because most people, I know me being growing up, my dad was always like, go to university, you're gonna make a lot of money, and then realizing to be in this industry in North America, you don't need to go to university to be in it, right? But a lot of people that I know who have university degrees, they bring a different spin to the game. And it could be from kinesiology or something else, because it's that scientific method they learn, it's that kind of different approach, I think, that brings value to it. But do you think that as a young individual it's needed, or do you think that someone just fresh out of high school can jump in and be just as successful?
I think it depends the type of role you're going for, right? Whereas if you're trying to go for something a bit more operational based, there's a bunch of supply chain programs, stuff like that, I think would be beneficial, to learn about supply chain and warehousing and stuff like that, right? Whereas if you're looking to get into the sales side of the industry, I don't think education is really required. You just need that, that you said, that hustle mindset. You kind of go, right? So that's what I think about that.
So, us being millennials, and I'm a little bit of an older millennial than you guys, but it's funny because in the industry everybody talks about millennials. As soon as they get out of university, you want to be a manager. You think that's kind of a possible thing that when you're in logistics, just kind of jump in? You know, someone has a MBA, comes to logistics, you know, without knowing any background. Do you think they can jump in and be a manager? Or do you think that they still need that kind of ground up knowledge of a precursor of that logistics piece before they get into that?
I wouldn't say it's like you work the ranks as in the corporate ladder, but I still think you have to, know what's going on. You can't just go on from like graduating university to managing, 50 people in a trucking company. It might be possible, but I think it would be a tool in your belt to, go through the different levels of, okay, this is what this department does, this is what this department does, right? And kind of learn everything in every aspect. So you're better equipped to manage that pool of people and the thing you're trying to do, right?
Yeah. Well, you don't have to start off like Evan, just driving truck right away,
Yeah.
but you hit it from the bottom up. But my previous boss at my previous company, he started off washing out trailers.
Yeah.
He was going to university, he got a job out in Winnipeg, and he was washing out trailers, and he moved up to be, director of a big company. And, everybody starts somewhere, but they're, but he still did the university part, and that's what you did too, right? You drove truck and you still did university.
Yeah.
So was it hard juggling, because you had, obviously what you were doing. Is it hard juggling university and working?
I think the main thing it taught me was like nothing is impossible, because at one point, first year the company was so small it wasn't impacting my school. My old goal was like, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna get a really good job, the typical thing, become a VP at a company, and then if I have extra money I'll invest in the business, because at that time the business was so small and it's so early on, I didn't know how exactly the world worked. So from the mental aspect, it was overwhelming at first, right? Because you have courses and stuff like that, but by the time I was getting done through it, I was sort of like, I almost felt as if I know it's not the right way to say superior than other peers, because I knew I had
you had an edge. You had a different edge.
I had an edge.
Yeah.
And I knew I just mentally, physically, I was capable of staying up 20 hours, getting my work done, driving to school, coming back, still getting my work done. Because it's not like you're working for somebody, you're working for your own self, right? Or even if you are working for somebody else, or getting education, you just get that mental edge, man. When kids are stressing about school, you're just like, okay, that's so easy. I'm stressing about like, shipment XYZ in California coming to Toronto on time and stuff like that. So I learned how to balance my time, and I learned how to just, I started to appreciate the mental stress. I turned the stress into sort of like just puzzles, like how does this fit here, how does this fit here? So I made a great schedule for myself, and in terms of the thing you said about managers was like, when you want to become a manager, you really have to learn how to manage yourself first.
Absolutely.
Before telling somebody, hey, do this and do that.
It's the discipline. A lot of the people lack that discipline, right?
It's discipline. So if you don't go to school, you're not going to get the grades, so you're wasting your time, wasting your money there. My parents really wanted me to get a degree, and I wanted to get a degree for myself too, because I wanted to set myself apart from the competition, and I felt like any edge I could get. I found great professors and friends at the same time that were teaching us stuff that was so practical, and like, a lot of these guys had their own businesses, so I just went to school to learn from these peers and these role models type of thing, right? And for me, being in a business program, that was my whole entire goal. I always wanted to move freight internationally around the world, like moving for armies, moving for health organizations, and just big companies.
Just
right?
help people.
I just wanted to help people, and it's simple for me because I saw my dad delivering loads and stuff. He'd tell me stories like, I delivered a load of minerals to Sudbury or something like that, and it's like, I saw 50 people there that were working at the factory. The load went there, blah blah blah. The entire story behind it. So in terms of university, it does prepare you. It teaches you how to learn, and that's what teaches you. That's what really helps you in business too, right?
Yeah. Did you find that knowledge that you gained from your bachelor's in business was any practical knowledge that you were able to translate quickly into your real world job, or did it take a while to make those connections? Going, oh, this is how this applies to my job. Is it? Because I find when I went to school, a lot of the stuff you're like, why am I learning this? There's no practicality to it. But 10 years later, I'm sitting going,
Like, oh crap.
there it is,
Yeah.
right? Did you see an instant translation to that, or was it did it come with time?
See, it was because it was a business degree. From the business aspect, talking to bankers and talking to like potential stakeholders, government agencies, things like that, it helped me because it polishes you. That's all it does, right? It teaches you how to talk to people, and it teaches you how to attack things with a methodological like a structure, right? Basically, you see things in a more structured or organized way, and then I was looking at my business and the concepts I was learning, I was applying them to the trucking company. So I was sort of literally doing experiments every day, like, anything simple from like communication to like how to manage people or how to set up this certain, function in the company. But if it's just a business degree and I went to work at another company, I would have been totally lost. But since I was applying it every day, I was very fortunate enough to sort of have a little bit of a guinea pig experience. That it taught me, as we grew a little bit, it started to, just give me that knowledge, and everything was clicking again and again.
So I guess the comparison against your peers was you were kind of doing a 4-year co-op at the same time as like your
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, right?
Whereas like they're only doing like a 4-month, but you're doing a 4-year type of
That's a
thing,
great
right?
way to put it. I never thought of it that way. And in year 2, I remember I was applying for some of the customers I had. I was sort of like, I didn't know it, but I gave my applications to a couple of guidance counselors, and I told them my story. And they were impressed by that, like, oh wow, like, you're doing this. And I said, I might not have the grades as the other kids, but like, I know how everything works and stuff. So they gave my application. I'm not gonna name the food company, but I know they made me skip like 3 rounds, and they're like, write an essay. Did really good on the essay, and then they're just like, oh, your grades don't matter or anything like that. That got me really pissed off one day. Are we allowed to like say things like that on the podcast?
Yeah.
I got really pissed off, and I remember this was on a winter day. I was going to Volvo picking up parts. I was looking forward to, today the guy's gonna email me. The guy emails me like 3 lines. He's like, thanks for applying. Currently, do not match the criteria.
Oh man.
This is only you could only do in your first 2 years to be the top 100, right?
Yeah.
And from that day, I was just like, you know what? Screw all these, institutionalized little gifts and stuff like that.
Yes.
I want to build something on my own, and I want to build something for this country, and that's what my whole entire educational experience was, to learn how to build, and not just do it for yourself, do it for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. 'Cause my journey was a bit different, because I started off right away working for a bigger company. When it came to logistics, I went over and did LogCat 4 over in Afghanistan, working for Fluor, and that whole experience was like mind-boggling. Would not compare to anything we do here. And 12-hour days, 7 days a week for 1 year, and then I came back here and I was like, I can't find a job. And then I got a job with a trucking company. When I got into it, that hustle just kind of translated for me, and kind of pushing that forward. But one thing I did realize at that position was that they focus a lot on training of people once they're into a position. So they take young grads, and they're very successful taking young grads out in Manitoba. They don't do it so well here in Ontario because they're a Manitoba company. They took young grads, and they instantly give them jobs, give them opportunities, and they translate to be great leaders. Some of the guys I started working with them back then, they came out of university, are great leaders at that company now, because they give them that opportunity. And I find a lot of companies in logistics itself, across the board, whether it's warehousing, whether it's trucking, ocean, whatever, I don't think they do a good enough job attracting these young people. Like, the demographics of this industry, it speaks for itself. 46 years old, I think, is the average age. Like, we are the minority when it comes to age-wise, right? And it speaks volumes to our ability, because we have so much more to gain. We have such an opportunity to get to it, but it's sad that we can't attract people into that industry. Like, I have a buddy now who, after 15 years, he's like, hey Matt, what can I do? I'm like, you can work in logistics, but you got to start over. And he's like, I'm in my mid-30s, like, I don't want to start over from anything. I'm like, you got no choice, right?
That's how you take that, or you're all right where you are right now, right?
Exactly, right? Because nobody's promoting that. Like, again, I never knew about logistics until I kind of happened to fall into it. Like, you guys had family involved. I had no family like directly involved, and I kind of happened to fall into this, and I happened to fall into that, and I moved on from that piece. And I'm like, oh, I love this industry, but there's I think there's a lack of promoting that too. It seems as they don't promote mechanics enough. It seems as they don't promote truck drivers enough in schools, and hey, you don't need to have that university degree right off the bat. You don't need to put yourself in debt. Like, right now, don't want to be in debt, and a lot of these kids don't get that. And
actually, when I was younger, I used to joke around with my dad, because I read this story one time where he was a trucker in Canada. He's a young guy. Pretty much, after high school, he didn't go to university or anything. His whole thing was, I'm gonna drive for 10 years, pretty much save up my money, and I'm just gonna move out to Nova Scotia and buy a house there, and I'm gonna retire. Which he ended up doing. Like, his story was like,
absolutely.
As a truck driver, you're able to clear like, not minimum, but upwards of 100,000, even more sometimes, depending on how hard you drive, right? How hard you hustle, right? So if you think about it, not just even each year he didn't have much expense because he's always on the road, right? So 10 years, you save up literally $500,000-$600,000 cash. You're investing at the same time, right? So that's a different twist on how you could, quote unquote, retire early as well, right?
And not only that, you get to see North America. You can go all the way down to California. You can go out to BC. You can go up to all these cool places that you normally wouldn't see. You get to meet really cool people while you're doing it, and you're making bank. Like that's what I think I regret. If I had known about this, I would have jumped in at 18, done it for 5 years, banked all my money, and then started my education, my career, and I would have been a lot further ahead. But because I didn't know about it, I didn't do it, right? And I think that's one of the shortfalls that we have, and hopefully that's what kind of message will kind of permeate through all our conversations. How do we attract these millennials and these younger generations into logistics, and how do we get them to have that hustle of the older generation? Because that's one thing that we always get ragged on or get beaten down by. Yeah, you guys are,
we're working as hard.
They're not working as hard as we did. You're not doing as much as we did, and maybe it's so, but it's a different generation, different way. But how do we get these millennials to think in those terms and kind of want to grind and want to hustle? Because that's a hard thing to teach someone, where they've been told their lives, like, go to university, you'll make $200,000, and they come out of university, they're not making $200,000.
They're like, crap, I'm $50,000 in debt, I'm making $0. What do I do?
Exactly.
The industry's not as glamorous or as sexy as, say, investment banking or programming. Those are our choices. We were told, My uncle told in California he did trucking for over 20 years, successful business, but he also did a lot of investments on the side. So for him, it was just like, because he was in that certain time period where the state of California grew so much and, his investments just banked. He just told us, he's like, trucking's not that lucrative, just keep it for day-to-day operations, grow on other things. He's like, you guys should either become an engineer, investment banker, or programmer. So he ingrained that since like we were in grade 6 and 7. He said, this is only thing you're going to do. You're going to make money with this and you're going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was also telling us at the same time, start your own business, think about that.
Yeah.
So we said, well, you did trucking, why are you telling us not to do it, right?
Yeah.
And then one day, one of my other uncles came in, he's like, this is all possible. So that's how we sort of started. That's how we got into it. Because, there's a lot of songs in the South Asian community about how truckers make so much money and stuff like that. I was like, oh yeah, we're going to make so much money. So the industry needs to be sort of catered in a way that it shows people that it's okay to be a driver, it's okay to be a tech, share some of the numbers that they make and stuff like that. That's it. Maybe somebody doesn't want to go to school for 4 years.
Well, even to that point, I think this year alone proved that where the society, the public kind of turned around and realized we need to think a driver.
Yes.
We need to think a tech. We need to think a mechanic. We need to think all these people who are in that supply chain because they're vital, right? And it is glamorous. I don't know, me growing up, I remember in the 90s, I don't know if you guys remember the movie Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
No? He was an armless, but he was a truck driver. And every time he turned his hat around, that's when he went over the top. And like I remember truck driver, that was like the 80s, and then even now if you talk to older truck drivers, like that was the age of driving, it was freedom and all that, and now it's a little bit different. But I segued a little bit what I wanted to get back to. And I think your experiences, we need to elaborate, and probably we're cutting short on time, but I want to finish off on it, is talk about, do you think, how hard it is for someone, a young adult or a young person before university or after university, to get into trucking, get their first truck on their own? Like, how difficult was it? Like, were you able to get loans? Kind of walk through that, maybe that cursor level.
For me, it was different, right? So the first truck that we got was my dad got it because he had his own personal credit and things like that. Mm-hmm. But if a young person wants to do it, it's not hard at all right now. As soon as they have like decent credit, 600, 650 credit points, whatever, it takes minimal, and then just put a down payment. There's a lot of options with zero down.
Mm-hmm.
As you get in as a driver, as an owner up, and you got your fleet going, right? Now it's getting tougher with things like insurance and there's more regulations on drivers and things like that. So it's harder to scale now, and they're making it harder to start too. But in terms of materials, getting equipment, that's the easiest part. So permits is easy too, but it's not that easy anymore as it was 6-7 years ago, right? And it gets tougher and tougher.
So do you think as a young adult, is it easier to buy your own truck and be an owner operator, which is very lucrative to run your own business because that's how you really learn the industry?
Yep.
Or do you go into a company and you get your license? And there's a lot of programs out there by the government of Ontario, the different provinces, providing education for that. Yes, it costs a little bit up front, but they do subsidize in the back end, and it's really worth looking into. What route would you recommend?
If I had to start again, I would learn the industry properly so I could cut my losses that I had in the beginning. I would work for a company. I would learn the great systems. I would either become an owner out there, or I would sort of get all the experience, then start my own company instead of sort of just jumping into it. We got lucky because my dad knew all the things, my uncles knew all the stuff. But you know what? Even with that, we had to learn a lot, like about simple things. But a young person, it doesn't matter where you go to university or you start a career. First thing you got to do is learn the industry, and you're only going to learn by doing it, not sitting on YouTube or Google. You can listen to podcasts, you can listen to a lot of things.
Yes, listen to podcasts, very important.
You get that exposure, and then you start doing, you start going to the right company, you find the right mentors.
Yeah.
Finding the right mentors is key, and then from there you can just start your business and your journey from there.
Yeah, and on that note, mentors. Did you have mentors getting into this yourself?
No, not really. I just dabbled into it and just taking it from there, learning from my peers, learning from what Evan said, YouTube podcasts, trying to, watch videos that, cater towards sales, operation, logistics. There's not that many.
Shout out to Grant Cardone, man.
Grant Cardone. No, sales is plenty of, but in terms of logistics and transportation stuff, there's only, I'd say, a handful of guys that are promoting it as their daily living type of thing. But what they're doing is good. But we're here to try to amplify that and take it to the next level. So yeah, I wouldn't say I had any direct mentors, but what I've learned so far, if I've learned from Evan, from the guys around here, they're a great asset. And I'm thankful to be here and continue the journey of being in this industry.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts there, Evan, before we close off here?
I'm looking at my mentor sitting right here, one of my mentors. Right?
I appreciate that.
And for me, it was just my dad and my uncle, and just gave me a strong mindset. And finding the right people along the way to help you out. It was because we were never selfish. We never sort of, went with the mindset, I want something from this person, I'll give back. We just said we just want to learn from you and we want to help you out too. And that's why I found the right people, and that's it. You got to find the right people, right company, and when you're there at the right time, you'll experience that.
Perfect. So, thanks for listening and joining us on our first episode of Launch It Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's topic.
Yep.
We inspired you to either start your own company or join a larger established company. podcasting is new for us, so if you have any feedback, suggestions,
Oh yeah, definitely.
we will shoot us a message. We'll have posts, all that kind of stuff on our different YouTube sites or LinkedIn sites. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.